Well, the time is just gone 9:36 a.m. and one of the big stories in South Africa has been the scrapping of the VAT increase, and we've seen the reaction. We've seen the reaction come through from political parties, where certain political parties are actually taking credit. Particularly in terms of the threat of court action, and we've seen Helen Zille's comments with regards to the DA taking credit for this. But again, was it about the political parties or was it about the power of the people? And or that actually made or forced the government to scrap VAT. And we're joined now by BOSA, One South African spokesperson Roger Solomons. Roger, good morning to you and welcome to the show.
Salam and good morning to you and all the listeners.
Yes, Roger, early on, I had a chat with Herman Mashaba, president of Action SA, and we were talking about what actually led to the government backing down and scrapping the VAT increase. Just looking at it from your perspective, Build One South Africa, and perhaps your involvement and also some of the background that actually led to this scrapping of the VAT increase.
Absolutely. This is a win for South Africans at large. South Africans are the biggest winners here. And at times it requires, matured leadership or political leadership, especially from our public representatives, to ensure that we always try and get South Africans over the finish line. So our role specifically as BOSA, especially through our leader, Musi Maimane, from the onset has been very clear in the sense that when we adopted the fiscal framework about a couple of weeks ago, that was only part or a component of that framework and the budget. So there's been a lot of political grandstanding and issue driving as that was the main issue. Yes, we do sympathize and that was an issue. And that is why as BOSA we said that our agreement to support the fiscal framework at the time was not unconditional. It was conditional that be scrapped or reversed. And as BOSA, we had proposals and suggestions, and hence we were invited by the ANC to have a thorough, matured, ongoing discussion, which BOSA played party to. But ultimately, it was a win for South Africa, and it required mature and bold leadership. But BOSA has been in the room. We remained in the room. We remained steadfast. And we weren't outside throwing tantrums and, whatever, running to courts and social media. We remained in the room and worked together with all the other parties. And that was our clear position on this.
Well, Roger, in fact, I'm actually quite glad that you mentioned that this was conditional because there are many who, when the budget was obviously passed, felt that those that were responsible in rubber stamping the budget had actually agreed to this VAT increase. And I know that one of the listeners this morning mentioned this to Herman Mashaba as well in terms of Action SA actually supporting the VAT increase and a turnabout. And I think this is important. And I'm just looking at the visuals coming through on the screen with BOSA as well, where people obviously holding up placards saying no to the VAT increase.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt of our position that we said that we will not support that. We will pull the plug on our support if that does go away. So we've been clear, that has always been our position, but the misinformation and the distortion, and yes, we know it's an emotional thing, but I feel that as public representatives and political parties, especially those who are outside of the room making noise, had to show some maturity because South Africans are not always or well informed, especially on the technicalities. So when you ask a layman, even if I ask my wife or my parents, fiscal framework, it's like, what are you talking about? What is a fiscal framework? And all we know is that you supported that. And I had to break it down to them. So I can just imagine that South Africans at the time partially due to ignorance, partially due to not being well informed or educated enough maybe on the actual process. Fiscal framework was just step one of a three-step process. We're only adopting the budget ultimately in June. So I think as public representatives and as parties, we have a responsibility also to inform and orientate and educate the public at large. What was disingenuous and what was unacceptable and actually very disheartening were certain political parties just taking the VAT issue, which is but just a component of a budget, running with that through misinformation and this whole propaganda. And at the end of the day, now, in hindsight, the biggest winners are South Africans. The biggest winners are those parties who remained in the room, who remained principled. And the maturity, and we need to appreciate the maturity of the ANC, being open and being warm to proposals and ideas and plans to ensure that South Africans don't have to pay VAT. And that was the biggest win which we saw unfolding yesterday.
Yes, Roger. But also, I think, when we talk about maturity, the maturity of the largest party, the ANC, but also when you have someone like Fikile Mbolola actually conceding, saying that this is a huge lesson for the ANC, not to accept things and not to take things for granted that, anything and everything goes. And again, I think he reiterated that, especially where we are as South Africa, we've gone into uncharted territory with the government of national unity, that it's not only the views of the ANC that actually matters. And this, I think, is an important lesson, because we know that the JNU at some point in time was actually treading on thin ice, and it was actually hanging on a very thin thread, as well as a result of these proposals, particularly with regard to VAT.
Absolutely. And I think that is maturity, and that is what democracy is all about. I think yesterday was a significant moment for us as South Africans. It was a proud moment, and it will forever be written in the history books. I mean, in the 31 years dispensation, we've never had this type of democracy displayed when it comes to passing budget. So instead of hating on the process, instead of insulting those who were in the room and contributed, we need to salute, and pat ourselves on the back. We've shown the maturity, and especially, like you said, the ANC being the leading party in the GNU, at all times they were accessible, they were rational, they were open, and they consulted with every single party, including those ones who were throwing tantrums outside the room, ultimately to say that this is the best decision. We hear you, South Africa, and we hear the public representatives who were elected, like BOSA and many others, to get a mandate and to ensure the best deal for South Africans. And this is an excellent start to a freedom weekend or Freedom Day.
Well, we're looking forward to the weekend, and have yourself also a wonderful weekend as well, Roger. But we thank you. We do appreciate you taking time out with us this morning right here on Solar Media. All the best to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and have an awesome day further.
World One South African spokesperson Roger Solomons again weighing in on the whole issue surrounding VAT and what had actually forced the government to scrap VAT. With that, we're going to go for a quick break. We come back, we'll be joined by tour operator Ayub Dadabai. And once again, we're talking about discovering Al-Aqsa during the July school holidays 2025.